I never thought my own father would choose my lying, manipulative sister over me, but there, I stood in his living room watching him point toward the door while demanding I apologize to Amanda and her 7-year-old son Tyler for supposedly ruining her birthday party. The truth was, I had simply questioned why I should pay for Tyler's private school tuition when Amanda refused to work. But apparently standing up for myself made me the villain in this twisted family dynamic. When Dad said I needed to leave until I could properly apologize to his precious favorites, I looked him straight in the eye and said the one word that would change everything: okay. Growing up as Robert's daughter meant understanding my place in the family hierarchy from an early age. Amanda, 3 years younger than my 28 years, had always been Daddy's little princess, who could do no wrong. While I spent my teenage years working part-time jobs and earning scholarships for college, Amanda glided through high school expecting everything to be handed to her on a silver platter. After our mother passed away when I was 22, I became the family's unofficial financial backbone. My marketing coordinator position at a mid-sized advertising firm in downtown Phoenix provided stable income that somehow became everyone else's safety net. When Amanda needed college tuition for her communications degree, I contributed $8,000. When she wanted an elaborate wedding to her high school boyfriend, Jake, I helped cover the reception costs. After their divorce 2 years later, left her with baby Tyler and mountains of debt, guess who stepped in to help with rent deposits and baby supplies? Amanda had mastered the art of playing victim while never taking responsibility for her choices. 3 different jobs in 5 years, each one ending because she either showed up late, constantly argued with supervisors, or simply stopped coming when the work became challenging. Her expensive taste in clothes, handbags, and electronics never seemed to align with her sporadic employment history, but somehow she always managed to maintain her lifestyle. Currently, she lived rent-free in Dad's 4-bedroom house in Scottsdale, with Tyler claiming she needed time to get back on her feet after losing her most recent job at a dental office. 6 months had passed since that termination, yet she showed no signs of actively job hunting. Instead, she spent her days shopping at upscale malls, getting her nails done, and posting carefully curated social media photos that painted the picture of a successful single mother. The birthday party incident had been brewing for weeks. Amanda announced she wanted to celebrate her 32nd birthday with an intimate gathering at Dad's house, suggesting I handle the catering while she focused on decorations and guest coordination. I agreed, spending $400 on gourmet appetizers, a custom cake from her favorite bakery, and premium wine selections. Everything seemed perfect until Amanda decided to make her announcement during gift opening. Standing in the center of the living room with Tyler beside her, she dramatically declared that she had wonderful news about Tyler's education. He had been accepted into a prestigious private academy with an annual tuition of $15,000. The room fell silent as guests processed this information. Then Amanda delivered her carefully planned bombshell. Of course, Kendra will be helping with tuition costs since she's always been so generous with family support. Unfortunately, she's been hesitant to commit, which shows how selfish she can be when it really matters. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me, waiting for my response to this public manipulation. I felt my cheeks burning as I struggled to maintain composure in front of family, friends, and relatives who had no context for Amanda's financial irresponsibility. "I think there might be some confusion," I replied carefully, keeping my voice steady. "This is the first time anyone has mentioned Tyler's tuition needs to me directly. I'd need to understand more about the family's financial planning before making any commitments." Amanda's expression shifted instantly from confident to wounded. Her lower lip began trembling as she gathered Tyler closer to her side. "I can't believe you're being so cold about your own nephew's future education. I thought family meant something to you." Tyler, clearly coached for this moment, burst into tears and ran toward Dad's chair. "Grandpa, why doesn't Aunt Kendra want me to go to the good school? Did I do something wrong?" The room's atmosphere became unbearably tense as guests witnessed this manufactured family drama. Dad immediately scooped Tyler into his arms, shooting me a disapproving look that spoke volumes about where his loyalties remained. Now, buddy. Dad soothed Tyler while glaring at me. Your Aunt Kendra just needs some time to think about what's really important in life. Family should always come first, right? The implicit criticism stung worse than Amanda's public ambush. Here I was, having spent the entire day and hundreds of dollars creating a beautiful celebration for my sister, only to be painted as the selfish family member for not instantly agreeing to pay $15,000 annually for a decision made without my input. After the guests left and Tyler was settled in front of the television, Dad cornered me in the kitchen. His weathered face showed disappointment and frustration as he began what would become the most devastating conversation of our relationship. Kendra, I'm really disappointed in how you handled yourself tonight. Amanda is struggling to provide the best opportunities for Tyler, and your response was cold and unsupportive. That little boy looks up to you, and you basically rejected him in front of everyone. I attempted to explain my perspective calmly. Dad, I wasn't rejecting Tyler. I was surprised by being put on the spot about a major financial commitment that nobody discussed with me privately first. $15,000 is a significant amount of money that requires careful planning. But Dad wasn't interested in hearing my reasoning. In his mind, Amanda was the struggling single mother who deserved unconditional family support, while I was the successful career woman who should be grateful for opportunities to help. The conversation escalated quickly as he accused me of being jealous of Amanda's relationship with Tyler and resentful of not being the center of attention. When I returned home that evening, exhaustion and hurt feelings prompted me to review my recent bank and credit card statements more carefully than usual. Something had been nagging at me for weeks about unauthorized charges appearing on my accounts, small amounts that individually seemed insignificant but collectively added up to concerning totals. As I spread the statements across my dining room table, a disturbing pattern emerged. Charges at stores where I never shopped, restaurants in areas I rarely visited, and online purchases for items I had never ordered. The amounts were clever, staying under $50 per transaction to avoid triggering fraud alerts, but the frequency was increasing. My heart raced as I calculated the total unauthorized spending over the past 6 months, nearly $4,000. Someone had been systematically stealing from me, and the timing coincided perfectly with Amanda's period of unemployment. Then I remembered giving Amanda my credit card information 6 months ago when Tyler needed emergency medical care while I was traveling for work. She had promised to only use it for his doctor visit and prescribed medication, but I had never changed the card number afterward, trusting that she would delete the information once the emergency passed. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. My own sister had been stealing from me while I continued supporting the family financially in other ways. Every dinner I had bought for family gatherings, every gift I had given Tyler, every time I had covered expenses without being asked, Amanda had been repaying my generosity by secretly draining my accounts. But the worst discovery was yet to come. Hidden in my purse, which I had left in Dad's kitchen during the party cleanup, I found a crumpled piece of paper with my social security number, bank routing information, and credit card details written in Amanda's distinctive handwriting. She'd been planning something much bigger than small retail theft. Monday morning brought a new perspective as I sat in my office cubicle, methodically documenting every suspicious charge while maintaining my usual professional demeanor. My coworkers chatted about their weekend activities, unaware that I was building a case against my own family member. The irony wasn't lost on me that I felt safer and more supported at work than I did at family gatherings. I scheduled appointments with my bank's fraud department and credit card companies, carefully explaining the situation without revealing the perpetrator's identity initially. The customer service representatives were sympathetic and helpful, walking me through the dispute process and explaining my rights as a victim of identity theft. They recommended filing a police report and suggested placing fraud alerts on my credit reports immediately. The evidence was overwhelming once I had professional guidance in identifying the patterns. Amanda had been using my card information for everything from grocery shopping to online clothing purchases, often making transactions while I was at work and couldn't monitor my accounts in real time. The sophistication of her scheme impressed even the bank fraud specialist, who noted that staying under $50 per transaction showed careful planning to avoid automatic security triggers. What disturbed me most was discovering that Amanda had attempted to use my information for larger purchases that were declined due to insufficient credit limits. Applications for store credit cards in my name had been submitted and rejected, but each application created a hard inquiry on my credit report that lowered my credit score. She had been systematically damaging my financial reputation while enriching herself. During my lunch break, I called my attorney friend Sarah Martinez, who specialized in white-collar crime. Her reaction to my story was immediate and concerned. "Kendra, what you're describing isn't just family drama. This is serious financial fraud that could have long-term consequences for your credit and financial security. You need to take action quickly before she escalates to larger theft." Sarah explained that identity theft between family members was more common than people realized, often going unreported, because victims felt guilty about pressing charges against relatives. However, the legal consequences were identical, regardless of family relationships, and the emotional manipulation often made family perpetrators more dangerous than strangers. While I was processing this legal reality, my phone rang with another guilt-inducing call from Dad. His voice carried the same disappointed tone from the birthday party confrontation, but now he was escalating his emotional manipulation tactics. "Kendra, Amanda has been crying all morning about how you rejected Tyler at the party. That little boy asked me why his aunt doesn't love him anymore. How am I supposed to explain that his successful aunt won't help pay for his education because she's too selfish?" I listened to this character assassination while staring at the evidence of Amanda's theft spread across my desk. The cognitive dissonance was staggering, hearing Dad defend the daughter who was actively stealing from me while criticizing me for not wanting to give her even more money. "Dad, I never said I wouldn't help Tyler. I said I needed more information about the financial planning before making commitments. There's a difference between being thoughtful and being selfish." But Dad had already made up his mind about the situation. "You know what, I think you're jealous that Amanda has Tyler, and you don't have children of your own. You resent her happiness, and you're taking it out on an innocent child." The accusation was so far from reality that I almost laughed. I had never wanted children at this stage of my life, focusing instead on building my career and financial stability. If anything, I had been overly generous in supporting Tyler's needs throughout his 7 years, from birthday gifts to school supplies to medical expenses. After ending that painful conversation, I received a series of increasingly desperate voicemails from Amanda herself. Her tone shifted dramatically between each message, cycling through different emotional manipulation strategies to find one that might work. The first message was tearful and apologetic. "Kendra, I'm so sorry about how things went at the party. I was just excited about Tyler's opportunity, and I thought you'd be happy for us. Please call me back so we can talk about this properly." The second message was angry and accusatory. "I can't believe you're willing to hurt Tyler because you're mad at me. He's just a child who wants to go to a good school. How can you live with yourself knowing you could help, but you're choosing not to?" The third message was manipulative and threatening. "Dad is really upset about your behavior at the party. He's talking about how disappointed Mom would be if she could see how selfish you've become. You're destroying this family over money." Each message made me angrier as I realized how calculated Amanda's campaign was. She was using every emotional weapon in her arsenal, from guilt about Tyler to invoking our deceased mother's memory to threatening family relationships. The sophistication of her manipulation matched the sophistication of her financial theft. That evening, I discovered Amanda had escalated her campaign beyond just family pressure. My supervisor, Jennifer, called me at home with a concerning update about a conversation she'd had that afternoon. "Kendra, I received an unusual call today from someone claiming to be your sister. She expressed concern about your mental health and suggested you might be going through some kind of breakdown. She mentioned erratic behavior and financial stress that might be affecting your work performance. My blood ran cold as I realized Amanda was now targeting my professional reputation. Jennifer, I can assure you that I'm not having any mental health issues. This sounds like it might be related to a family conflict that I'm handling privately. Jennifer's tone was supportive but cautious. I believe you, but I wanted you to know about the call in case there are other contacts. She seemed very concerned and mentioned specific details about your behavior that made it sound like she had legitimate reasons for worry. After hanging up, I sat in my living room trying to process the escalating nature of Amanda's attacks. She wasn't content with stealing my money and manipulating family relationships. Now she was attempting to sabotage my career by planting seeds of doubt about my mental stability with my employer. The next morning brought even more disturbing discoveries. I found a credit monitoring alert in my email indicating that someone had attempted to open a new credit line using my social security number and personal information. The application had been submitted online from an IP address in Scottsdale, where Dad and Amanda lived. When I called the credit company to investigate, they provided details that confirmed my worst fears. The application included employment information claiming I worked at a fictional company with an inflated salary banking information from an account I had never opened and a phone number that traced back to Amanda's cell phone. This wasn't just casual theft anymore. Amanda was attempting to commit major financial fraud using my identity, potentially leaving me liable for thousands of dollars in debt that I had never incurred. The realization that my own sister was willing to destroy my financial future for her personal gain was devastating. But the final straw came when I checked my grandmother's Facebook page and saw a troubling post about unexpected financial difficulties. Grandma Rose, our 84-year-old maternal grandmother, had written a confused message asking family members for advice about credit card charges she didn't remember making. My hands trembled as I called Grandma Rose directly. Her voice was shaky and embarrassed as she explained that someone had been using her credit cards for purchases she didn't understand. The amounts were similar to what Amanda had been stealing from me, and the timing coincided with Amanda's recent visits to help Grandma Rose with grocery shopping and household tasks. I don't understand how this happened, sweetheart. Amanda has been so helpful lately, driving me to appointments and helping me organize my finances. But now there are all these charges for things I never bought. The pure evil of Amanda's actions hit me fully. She wasn't just stealing from me, her financially stable sister who could absorb the losses. She was stealing from our elderly grandmother on a fixed income, someone who trusted her completely and had no resources to recover from financial theft. That night, I made the decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to apologize to Amanda or beg for Dad's forgiveness. I wasn't going to enable this toxic family dynamic any longer by being the responsible one who absorbed abuse for the sake of keeping peace. Instead, I was going to disappear from their lives completely and let them face the consequences of their choices without my financial safety net to catch them. Tuesday morning began my systematic extraction from the toxic family web that had been slowly strangling my independence and self-respect for years. My first stop was the local police station, where I filed formal reports for identity theft, credit card fraud, and elder abuse based on Amanda's theft from Grandma Rose. Detective Maria Santos listened carefully as I presented my meticulously organized evidence. The documentation impressed her, particularly the pattern analysis showing escalating theft over time and the expansion to additional victims within the same family. This level of organization suggests someone who has been planning and executing financial crimes with increasing confidence, Detective Santos explained. The fact that she's targeting elderly family members makes this particularly serious. Elder financial abuse carries enhanced penalties in Arizona. Filing the police reports felt like crossing a bridge I could never uncross, but the relief was immediate. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying the weight of Amanda's crimes alone. Law enforcement professionals were taking the situation seriously and treating me like a victim rather than a selfish family member. My next stop was First National Bank, where I met with branch manager David Kim to close my existing accounts and open new ones with enhanced security features. The process took 3 hours as we reviewed every transaction, disputed fraudulent charges, and established protocols to prevent future unauthorized access. I recommend opening accounts at a completely different banking institution, David advised. If the perpetrator has been observing your banking habits, they might know details about your current accounts that could help them bypass security measures. Following his advice, I drove across town to Desert Community Credit Union and established new checking and savings accounts with different account numbers, PINs, and security questions. I also arranged for a new debit card and credit cards from different companies, ensuring that Amanda's stolen information would become completely useless. The phone company was my next destination, where I changed my cell phone number and added extra security features to prevent unauthorized account access. I kept my old number active for one more day to collect any important calls, but planned to disconnect it permanently by Thursday. That afternoon, I met with my apartment complex manager to discuss breaking my lease 3 months early. The penalties were significant, but I had decided to relocate to a different part of Phoenix, where Amanda and Dad couldn't easily find me. I needed physical distance to maintain the emotional boundaries I was establishing. Sarah Martinez helped me navigate the legal complexities of identity theft cases involving family members. She explained that Amanda would likely face multiple felony charges if the evidence supported prosecution, but warned that family pressure to drop charges would be intense. The most important thing is protecting yourself from further harm, Sarah emphasized. Your sister has shown she's willing to escalate her criminal behavior, so you need to assume she'll continue targeting you unless she's legally prevented from doing so. I requested a temporary leave of absence from work, explaining to Jennifer that I was dealing with a serious family legal matter that required my full attention. She approved the request immediately and assured me that my position would be protected during the investigation. Meanwhile, Amanda and Dad were beginning to realize that something had changed. My phone rang constantly with calls from both of them, but I let everything go to voicemail while I focused on securing my future. The messages grew increasingly frantic as they sensed their access to my financial resources slipping away. Dad's voicemails were bewildered and demanding. Kendra, you need to call me back immediately. This silent treatment is ridiculous and it's hurting Tyler. Whatever's wrong between you and Amanda can be worked out if you'll just act like an adult about it. Amanda's messages cycled through manipulation tactics with increasing desperation. Kendra, I don't know why you're being so dramatic about everything. We're family and family forgives each other. Tyler keeps asking where Aunt Kendra is and I don't know what to tell him. By Wednesday evening, I had systematically dismantled every connection that allowed Amanda access to my life. New bank accounts, new phone number, new address, new credit cards, and fraud alerts on all my financial accounts. I felt like I was witnessing my own rebirth as I reclaimed control over my resources and future. The physical moving process was cathartic. As I packed my belongings into cardboard boxes, I was literally and figuratively packing away the version of myself that had accepted financial exploitation as the price of family harmony. Each item I wrapped represented another step toward independence from toxic relationships. My new apartment was a 1-bedroom unit in Tempe, 15 miles from Dad's house and close to my office. The complex had excellent security features, including gated access security cameras and a policy requiring identification for all visitors. I felt safer there than I had felt in years. Thursday brought the first real consequences as Amanda's stolen credit card information stopped working. I monitored my old accounts remotely and watched as several attempted transactions were declined throughout the day. She tried multiple times to access funds that were no longer available, probably assuming the cards were having temporary technical problems. By Friday, the reality was setting in for both Amanda and Dad. Without my hidden financial subsidies, their household budget immediately became unmanageable. The credit cards Amanda had been using for groceries, gas, and entertainment were worthless. The emergency fund she thought she could access for Tyler's school expenses was gone. The safety net that had enabled her irresponsible lifestyle for years had simply vanished. Dad called my old number dozens of times, leaving increasingly angry voicemails as he realized I wasn't responding. His tone shifted from disappointed father to desperate dependent as he began understanding how much their family's financial stability had relied on my unacknowledged support. Kendra, this is getting ridiculous. Amanda's cards aren't working and she's upset about not being able to buy groceries. Whatever's wrong needs to be fixed immediately because Tyler needs things and bills need to be paid. The entitlement in his voice was staggering. Even faced with evidence that Amanda had been stealing, his primary concern was maintaining their access to my resources rather than addressing her criminal behavior. Amanda left one particularly revealing voicemail that Friday evening. "Kendra, I know you changed your bank accounts and cards because you're mad about the party thing. This is really immature, and it's hurting Tyler. You can't just cut off your family because we had one disagreement. Call me back so we can fix this." Her casual dismissal of identity theft as a disagreement showed how completely she had rationalized her criminal behavior. In Amanda's mind, my money was family money that she had every right to access, and my attempts to protect myself were selfish overreactions to minor family drama. But the most significant call came Saturday morning from Grandma Rose, who had been contacted by Amanda seeking emergency financial help. Her voice was confused and worried as she related the conversation. "Amanda came by yesterday asking if she could borrow $5,000 because you had frozen her access to family accounts during some kind of fight. She said Tyler needed medical treatment that couldn't wait. But then she couldn't explain what kind of treatment or which doctor, and she got angry when I asked questions." This confirmed that Amanda was now desperately seeking alternative funding sources as her stolen credit pipeline dried up. She was even willing to manipulate our elderly grandmother with lies about Tyler's health to secure emergency funds. Grandma Rose Amanda has been stealing money from both of us using credit card information she obtained illegally. I filed police reports this week, and you should call Detective Santos to report her attempts to defraud you as well. The conversation was difficult, but Grandma Rose deserved to understand the danger she faced from Amanda's escalating desperation. By Sunday evening, she had called the police and added her own elder abuse report to Amanda's growing legal troubles. That weekend, I also discovered that Amanda had been selling items from Dad's house on online marketplace platforms, claiming I had abandoned personal belongings when I moved out. Family heirlooms that belonged to me, including our mother's jewelry collection that had been specifically left to me in her will, were listed for sale with fabricated stories about needing quick cash for family emergencies. The violation felt even more personal than the financial theft. Amanda was literally selling pieces of our mother's memory to fund her shopping addiction and gambling habits that I was only beginning to understand. Monday brought the first wave of consequences as Amanda's world began collapsing without access to my stolen funds. I monitored the situation carefully from my new apartment, watching through social media and mutual family contacts as her carefully constructed facade crumbled under financial pressure. Her first desperate move was attempting to forge my signature on withdrawal slips for bank accounts that had already been closed. The bank's security cameras captured her trying multiple times to access funds that no longer existed, becoming increasingly agitated with tellers who couldn't help her access accounts under my name. Bank security contacted Detective Santos about the attempted fraud, adding another charge to Amanda's growing legal troubles. The surveillance footage clearly showed her presenting identification documents with my information, while obviously being a different person, creating undeniable evidence of identity theft. By Tuesday, Amanda was making frantic calls to distant relatives and family friends, spinning elaborate stories about my supposed mental breakdown and her urgent need for financial assistance. She claimed I had become paranoid and vindictive, freezing family accounts during a psychological crisis that required professional intervention. Uncle Mike, Dad's brother in Tucson, called me directly after receiving one of Amanda's solicitation calls. His voice was concerned but skeptical as he related her story. Amanda called asking for $3,000, claiming you had some kind of breakdown and cut off all family financial support. She said Tyler needed emergency medical care, but she couldn't access family emergency funds because of your mental state. The whole thing sounded fishy, so I wanted to hear your side. I explained the real situation to Uncle Mike, sharing details about the identity theft and my decision to protect myself legally and financially. His reaction was immediate anger at Amanda's manipulation and embarrassment at being targeted for her scam. That manipulative little witch tried to con me out of $3,000 with fake stories about your mental health. I'm calling everyone in the family to warn them about her lies. Uncle Mike's warning calls created a ripple effect throughout our extended family network. Cousins, aunts, and family friends began comparing notes about Amanda's recent financial solicitations and discovering the pattern of elaborate lies she had been telling to secure funds. Meanwhile, Dad was struggling with the reality of supporting Amanda and Tyler without my hidden subsidies. Bills that had been mysteriously manageable suddenly became overwhelming as he realized how much of their household expenses had been covered by my stolen funds. His grocery bills doubled when Amanda could no longer use my credit cards for shopping. Utility payments that had been automatically charged to my accounts now required cash from his retirement income. Tyler's extracurricular activities and entertainment expenses previously funded through my theft became impossible to maintain. By Wednesday, Dad was leaving increasingly desperate voicemails on my old number, which I monitored but didn't answer. His tone shifted from angry demands to bargaining pleas as he began understanding the true scope of their financial dependence. Kendra, I know you're upset about something, but we need to talk. Amanda's cards aren't working, and I can't cover all these expenses on my Social Security income. Tyler's asking why Aunt Kendra disappeared, and I don't know what to tell him. Please call me back. The investigation was expanding as Detective Santos discovered additional victims beyond Grandma Rose and myself. Amanda had been using variations of her identity theft scheme against other family members and acquaintances, always staying under radar with small amounts and careful timing. Tyler's school contacted Amanda about overdue tuition payments for his current private academy, threatening to disenroll him if the account wasn't brought current within 10 days. The $15,000 prestigious school she had announced at her birthday party wasn't even accepting new applications, making her entire announcement a fabricated manipulation tactic. Amanda's social media presence began reflecting her growing desperation. Posts about temporary financial setbacks and requests for prayers during difficult times replaced her usual lifestyle bragging. The carefully curated image of successful single motherhood was cracking under the pressure of actual financial responsibility. Her few remaining friends started distancing themselves as word spread about the identity theft charges. Parents at Tyler's school heard about the investigation through community gossip networks, creating social isolation that compounded Amanda's practical problems. Thursday brought a particularly disturbing development when Tyler's teacher called Child Protective Services, expressing concern about changes in his behavior and well-being. He had become withdrawn and anxious, telling stories about family emergencies and Aunt Kendra being sick that didn't match information the school had on file. Social worker Jennifer Adams contacted me as part of their investigation into Tyler's welfare. Her questions were careful and professional as she tried to understand the family dynamics affecting Tyler's stability. Tyler has been telling concerning stories at school about family financial problems and adults arguing about money. His teacher noticed that he seems to be repeating explanations that sound coached rather than natural for a 7-year-old child. I explained the situation, honestly emphasizing my concern for Tyler's welfare, while maintaining appropriate boundaries about the ongoing criminal investigation. Jennifer Adams seemed relieved to get accurate information after days of conflicting stories from Amanda and Dad. It sounds like Tyler is being used as an emotional manipulation tool in adult conflicts he can't understand. We'll be monitoring the situation closely to ensure his safety and stability. By Friday, Amanda's gambling addiction was finally being exposed as creditors, and collection agencies began contacting Dad's house. I learned through Uncle Mike that Amanda owed significant money to multiple casinos in the Phoenix area, explaining where much of the stolen funds had actually gone. The prestigious lifestyle she had been maintaining was funded entirely through theft and gambling winnings that couldn't sustain her increasing debts. Without access to my credit cards, her house of cards was collapsing, rapidly revealing the true scope of her financial irresponsibility. Dad called my old voicemail with the most desperate message, yet his voice breaking as he finally began grasping the severity of Amanda's problems. "Kendra, people are calling here demanding money from Amanda that I don't have. She owes thousands of dollars to places I've never heard of. I need help understanding what's been going on because nothing makes sense anymore." That weekend, I received a call from Grandma Rose with devastating news. Amanda had attempted to access Grandma Rose's safe deposit box using forged authorization documents, claiming she needed important family papers for Tyler's school enrollment. The bank had stopped the attempted theft and called police, but the violation felt deeply personal. Our mother's important documents, family photos, and heirloom jewelry were stored in that box, representing the last tangible connections to our family history. She told the bank that you had given her permission to access everything because you were too sick to handle family responsibilities yourself. When they asked for written authorization, she became angry and accused them of not caring about family emergencies. Amanda's willingness to steal from our mother's memory and manipulate our grandmother's trust represented a moral boundary that couldn't be uncrossed. She had moved beyond desperate financial crimes into calculated emotional terrorism against the most vulnerable family members. Sunday evening brought the news I had been expecting, but dreading. Detective Santos called to inform me that Amanda had been arrested attempting to use a fake identification card with my information to open a bank account at a different financial institution. She was carrying multiple pieces of identification with your personal information and had detailed notes about your employment history, banking preferences, and security question answers. This suggests she's been planning identity theft on a much larger scale than the credit card fraud. The arrest triggered a comprehensive investigation that revealed the true scope of Amanda's criminal enterprise. Her apartment was searched, revealing files of personal information about multiple family members, notebooks with banking information, and credit details and evidence of ongoing fraud schemes targeting several victims. Monday morning brought news that would reshape our family dynamics permanently. Detective Santos called with updates from Amanda's arrest and the evidence discovered during the search of her belongings. The scope of her criminal activities was far more extensive than anyone had imagined. Your sister has been operating what we can only describe as a family identity theft ring, Detective Santos explained. She had detailed files on at least 8 family members with their social security numbers, banking information credit reports, and personal details needed to impersonate them financially. The discovery included Uncle Mike's information despite his skepticism about her recent loan requests. She'd been planning to target him next if her appeals for voluntary financial assistance had failed. Cousin Sarah's credit report and banking details were also found, along with information about Grandma Rose's entire financial portfolio. Amanda had been arrested carrying a fake driver's license with my photograph and her information planning to open multiple credit accounts using my established credit history. The sophistication of her fraud operation impressed even experienced financial crime investigators. "This isn't desperation theft," Detective Santos continued. "This is organized criminal enterprise with long-term planning and multiple backup targets. She faces multiple felony charges, including identity theft, elder abuse, credit card fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes." The bail hearing was scheduled for Wednesday, with prosecutors recommending high bail due to the extensive victim list and flight risk concerns. Amanda's pattern of manipulating family members and targeting vulnerable elderly relatives showed she posed ongoing danger to the community if released. Dad attended the bail hearing, still clinging to denial about Amanda's criminal behavior. He sat in the courtroom looking confused and defeated as prosecutors detailed the evidence against his precious daughter. The reality of her systematic theft and manipulation was finally being presented objectively by professionals who couldn't be charmed or manipulated. When Amanda's public defender requested character witnesses, Dad was the only person willing to speak on her behalf. His statement was rambling and defensive, focusing on her role as Tyler's mother rather than addressing the serious criminal charges she faced. Amanda is a good mother who made some mistakes during a difficult time in her life. She needs help, not prison. Tyler needs his mother home to take care of him. The prosecutor's response was swift and devastating. They presented evidence showing Amanda had been stealing from Tyler's college fund, using his social security number to apply for credit, and emotionally manipulating him to support her lies to teachers and social workers. The defendant has shown no remorse for her crimes and continues to use her child as a shield against consequences for her actions. Her pattern of escalating financial abuse against family members makes her a danger to everyone in her social circle. The judge set bail at $50,000, which Dad couldn't afford without liquidating his retirement savings. Amanda would remain in custody until trial, unless she could find alternative sources for bail money that didn't involve additional fraud or manipulation. That afternoon, social services contacted me about Tyler's placement during Amanda's incarceration. Jennifer Adams explained that Dad was willing to take custody, but they needed to ensure Tyler's safety and well-being given the family's chaotic dynamics. Tyler has been exposed to significant adult manipulation and criminal behavior. He's confused about family relationships and has been coached to repeat stories that aren't true. We need to provide him with stability and honest information appropriate for his age level. I agreed to meet with social services to discuss Tyler's needs while maintaining healthy boundaries. My goal was ensuring his welfare without enabling the toxic family patterns that had allowed Amanda's behavior to escalate unchecked. The meeting took place at Dad's house on Friday afternoon, providing my first direct contact with family members since disappearing the previous week. Dad looked exhausted and defeated, aged years by the stress of Amanda's arrest and the financial chaos she had left behind. Tyler ran to hug me when I arrived, his 7-year-old mind unable to understand the complex adult problems that had separated us. His innocent questions about why Mommy was in jail and when she was coming home broke my heart while reinforcing my determination to protect him from further manipulation. Aunt Kendra, Mommy said you were sick and couldn't help our family anymore. But you look fine to me. Were you pretending to be sick because you were mad at Mommy? The conversation required delicate honesty about adult problems without burdening Tyler with details he couldn't process. Jennifer Adams helped guide our discussion, ensuring Tyler understood that adults sometimes make bad choices that have consequences, but those consequences weren't his fault. Dad remained largely silent during the meeting, overwhelmed by shame and confusion about how completely he had misunderstood Amanda's behavior. The evidence of her systematic theft and manipulation was undeniable, forcing him to confront his role in enabling her crimes through willful blindness and misplaced loyalty. After Tyler went outside to play, Dad attempted his first genuine apology in our relationship history. His words were halting and painful as he struggled to acknowledge the extent of his favoritism and poor judgment. Kendra, I don't know how to begin apologizing for what I've put you through. I thought I was protecting Amanda and Tyler, but I can see now that I was helping her hurt people instead. I failed you as a father, and I failed Tyler by not seeing what kind of person his mother really is. The apology was meaningful but insufficient to repair years of emotional damage and recent betrayal. I explained that forgiveness would be a long process, requiring consistent changes in behavior rather than just words of regret. Dad, I appreciate your apology, but rebuilding trust requires time and proof that things have actually changed. I'm willing to help Tyler through this crisis, but I need clear boundaries about family financial arrangements going forward. We established a formal agreement with social services oversight. I would contribute to Tyler's legitimate educational and medical expenses through direct payments to schools and doctors, bypassing any possibility of adult manipulation. Dad would attend family counseling to address his enabling behaviors and favoritism patterns. Amanda's trial was scheduled for 6 weeks later, giving our family time to adjust to new dynamics without her manipulative presence. Uncle Mike and other relatives began reaching out to apologize for doubting my concerns and to offer support during the legal process. The community response was overwhelmingly supportive once people understood the true situation. Neighbors who had witnessed Amanda's lifestyle wondered privately how she afforded her expensive tastes without steady employment. Her arrest provided answers that many people had been curious about, but too polite to question directly. Tyler's school was relieved to finally understand the source of the family's contradictory information and financial inconsistencies. They worked with social services to provide counseling support for Tyler and clear communication protocols to prevent future manipulation. By Sunday evening, I felt cautiously optimistic about the family's ability to heal from Amanda's destructive influence. Tyler was responding well to honest, age-appropriate information about the situation. Dad was beginning counseling to address his enabling behaviors. The legal system was holding Amanda accountable for her crimes without family interference. But Amanda wasn't finished fighting. Her next move would test everyone's commitment to maintaining healthy boundaries and protecting Tyler's welfare above all other considerations. Amanda's desperation reached new heights as she realized the legal system wouldn't be manipulated like family members had been for years. From jail, she began orchestrating increasingly desperate schemes to avoid consequences and regain control over her victims. Her first strategy was recruiting her former cellmate, Maria Gonzalez, to make threatening phone calls to witnesses in her case. Maria called Grandma Rose, claiming to be from a debt collection agency, demanding immediate payment for Amanda's gambling debts or face legal action against the entire family. Grandma Rose was terrified by the aggressive call and immediately contacted Dad, who called me in panic. When we reported the incident to Detective Santos, she traced the calls back to Maria and discovered Amanda's instructions written on contraband paper found during a cell search. Your sister is now facing additional charges for witness intimidation and conspiracy to obstruct justice, Detective Santos informed me. She's digging herself deeper instead of accepting responsibility for her original crimes. The incident demonstrated that jail time hadn't prompted any reflection or remorse from Amanda. Instead, she was doubling down on manipulation tactics and expanding her criminal behavior to include witness intimidation. Her second strategy was even more disturbing. Amanda convinced Dad to bring Tyler for a jail visit, then coached him to tell social workers that he wanted to live with Mommy again because Grandpa and Aunt Kendra were mean to him when she wasn't there. Tyler returned from the visit confused and upset, repeating Amanda's instructions about telling adults that he missed Mommy and didn't understand why she couldn't come home. The manipulation was transparent to adults, but emotionally devastating for a 7-year-old child caught between loyalty to his mother and truthful reporting to social workers. Jennifer Adams immediately restricted Amanda's contact with Tyler after recognizing the coaching tactics. Tyler's emotional well-being is our primary concern. His mother is using him as a tool to manipulate the legal system, which constitutes additional child emotional abuse. When Amanda learned about the contact restrictions, she convinced another inmate to call Dad, claiming that Tyler was in danger from my supposedly unstable mental condition. The caller insisted that Amanda had information about threats I had made against Tyler's safety that needed immediate investigation. Dad, still vulnerable to manipulation despite everything he had learned, briefly considered the possibility that I might pose a danger to Tyler. His moment of doubt infuriated me, but also demonstrated how deeply Amanda's years of manipulation had damaged his ability to trust his own judgment. Dad, think about what you're suggesting. I've spent years supporting this family financially and emotionally. I've been the stable, responsible family member through every crisis. Does it make any sense that I would suddenly become dangerous to Tyler? The conversation forced Dad to confront how completely Amanda had warped his perception of family dynamics. He realized that his immediate instinct was still to believe Amanda's version of events over objective evidence showing how much work remained in rebuilding his critical thinking abilities. Amanda's trial preparation revealed the full scope of her criminal activities through the discovery process. Bank records showed she had stolen nearly $30,000 from family members over 2 years, with escalating amounts as her gambling addiction worsened. Security camera footage from multiple casinos showed Amanda spending stolen funds on slot machines and card games, while Tyler was in school or staying with Dad. She had been living a double life, playing responsible single mother during the day and compulsive gambler at night. Her defense attorney attempted to argue that Amanda's crimes were motivated by financial desperation as a struggling single mother. However, prosecutors easily demolished this narrative by showing evidence of her luxury purchases, gambling losses, and refusal to seek legitimate employment. The defendant wasn't stealing to feed her child or pay rent, the prosecutor argued. She was stealing to fund a gambling addiction and maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford legally. Her use of family trust and her child's welfare as manipulation tools makes her crimes particularly heinous. The trial lasted 3 days, with family members testifying about the impact of Amanda's crimes on their lives and relationships. Grandma Rose's testimony was particularly powerful as she described feeling violated and unsafe in her own community after Amanda's theft. "I trusted Amanda completely because she was my granddaughter. I gave her access to my home, my personal information, and my financial accounts because I believe family members protect each other. Learning that she was stealing from me while pretending to help me has destroyed my ability to trust anyone." Tyler was spared from testifying, but social workers presented evidence about the emotional manipulation and coaching he had experienced. The court recognized that Amanda's treatment of Tyler constituted child emotional abuse that continued even during her incarceration. I testified about the financial and emotional impact of Amanda's crimes, emphasizing how her manipulation had damaged family relationships and created lasting trust issues. My statement focused on the community impact of identity theft and the importance of holding family members accountable for criminal behavior, regardless of relationships. Dad's testimony was the most difficult for everyone involved. He was forced to acknowledge his role in enabling Amanda's behavior and admit that his favoritism had prevented him from recognizing obvious warning signs about her criminal activities. "I failed my daughters and my grandson by allowing my emotions to override my judgment. I enabled criminal behavior because I wanted to believe Amanda was a good mother, struggling with temporary problems. I ignored evidence and dismissed concerns because facing the truth was too painful." The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Amanda showed no remorse during sentencing, instead glaring at family members and mouthing accusations of betrayal as the judge imposed her punishment. She received 5 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 3 years contingent on completing gambling addiction treatment and paying full restitution to all victims. The sentence also included permanent restrictions on her access to financial accounts belonging to family members. Tyler's reaction to his mother's sentencing was complex and heartbreaking. He was sad that Mommy wouldn't be coming home for a long time, but also relieved that the adult arguing and confusion had finally stopped. Social workers assured him that missing his mother was normal while also helping him understand that her behavior wasn't his fault. "Sometimes adults make very bad choices that hurt other people," Jennifer Adams explained to Tyler during a counseling session I attended. "When that happens, there are consequences to help them learn better ways to behave. It doesn't mean anyone loves you less." The family began healing immediately after Amanda's sentencing, freed from her constant manipulation and financial terrorism. Dad started attending weekly therapy sessions to address his enabling behaviors and rebuild his relationship with Tyler based on honesty rather than emotional manipulation. Tyler's school performance improved dramatically once he was living in a stable environment with consistent messages from the adults in his life. His teacher noted that he seemed more relaxed and age-appropriately curious about the world rather than anxiously focused on adult approval. I established a college savings account for Tyler with professional management, ensuring that his educational future would be secure regardless of family financial struggles. The account was structured to prevent any possibility of adult access until Tyler reached college age. Grandma Rose moved into an assisted living community where her finances were professionally managed and her personal information was secure from potential family manipulation. She seemed relieved to have professional oversight protecting her from future scams or theft attempts. The extended family relationships slowly rebuilt as relatives understood the true situation and apologized for doubting my concerns about Amanda's behavior. Uncle Mike became particularly supportive, often checking in about Tyler's welfare and offering practical assistance with Dad's adjustment to single parenting responsibilities. Most importantly, I began feeling like myself again for the first time in years. The constant stress of family manipulation and financial exploitation was gone, replaced by healthy relationships based on mutual respect and clear boundaries. 6 months after Amanda's sentencing, our family had transformed into something unrecognizable from the toxic dysfunction that had defined our relationships for years. Tyler thrived in his new environment of honesty and stability, becoming the confident, curious child he had always been underneath his mother's emotional manipulation. His first genuine conversation with me about the situation happened on a Saturday afternoon while we worked together on a puzzle at Dad's kitchen table. Tyler's 7-year-old perspective was refreshingly direct as he processed the complex, adult events that had disrupted his world. Aunt Kendra, I understand now that Mommy was taking money that didn't belong to her, and that's why she had to go to jail. I used to think it was because everyone was being mean to her, but now I know that taking things without asking is always wrong, even for grown-ups. His emotional maturity impressed both Dad and me as we watched him work through conflicting feelings of love for his mother and disappointment in her choices. The family counseling sessions had given him age-appropriate language to express complicated emotions without feeling responsible for adult problems. Tyler's academic performance soared once he was free from the constant stress of managing adult emotions and repeating coach stories to teachers and social workers. His second-grade teacher reported that he had become one of her most engaged students, curious about learning rather than anxiously focused on saying the right things to please adults. Tyler has transformed from a child who seemed worried about adult approval into a natural learner who asks wonderful questions and enjoys exploring new ideas, Mrs. Patterson shared during our parent-teacher conference. Whatever changes you've made at home have given him the security to just be a kid. Dad's transformation was equally remarkable as he committed to understanding his enabling behaviors through intensive counseling. His therapist, Dr. Rebecca Coleman, helped him recognize how his fear of losing Amanda's love had prevented him from setting appropriate boundaries or holding her accountable for harmful actions. I spent years confusing enabling with love, Dad explained to me during one of our weekly coffee meetings. I thought being a good father meant protecting Amanda from consequences, but I was actually preventing her from learning how to be a responsible adult. I hurt everyone, especially Tyler, by prioritizing my feelings over everyone's safety. His apologies were backed by consistent behavioral changes that rebuilt trust slowly but surely. He learned to recognize manipulation tactics and respond with firm boundaries rather than emotional reactions. Most importantly, he began treating Tyler as a child who needed protection rather than a tool for managing Amanda's emotions. The financial restitution process was handled through the court system, ensuring that all of Amanda's victims received compensation for their losses. My credit score had been fully restored, and the security measures I had implemented protected me from any future family financial abuse. Grandma Rose's transition to assisted living had unexpected benefits beyond financial security. She developed friendships with other residents and participated in activities that gave her more social interaction than she had experienced living alone. Her cognitive health improved with regular social stimulation and professional care. "I should have made this move years ago," she admitted during one of my weekly visits. "I was isolated and vulnerable living alone, which made me an easy target for Amanda's manipulation. Here, I have people looking out for me and activities that keep my mind sharp." Tyler's relationship with me deepened as we spent regular time together without the complicated family drama that had previously surrounded every interaction. We established traditions like Saturday morning pancake breakfasts and monthly trips to the science museum that belonged just to us. His questions about money, trust, and family relationships provided opportunities for valuable life lessons about healthy boundaries and personal responsibility. Tyler learned to manage his own small allowance and understand the difference between needs and wants in a way that would protect him from developing financial manipulation tactics. The community response to Amanda's conviction had been overwhelmingly supportive, particularly among other parents who recognized the importance of holding family members accountable for criminal behavior. Several people approached me to share their own experiences with family financial abuse and thank me for speaking publicly about the issue. My workplace had also been supportive throughout the legal process, and my handling of the crisis had impressed upper management enough to offer me a promotion to senior marketing coordinator with a significant salary increase. The professional recognition felt like validation that I had made the right choices despite family pressure. Amanda's first parole hearing was still 2 years away, but she had begun participating in required gambling addiction treatment and financial responsibility courses in prison. Her letters to Tyler were monitored and heavily supervised, focusing on age-appropriate expressions of love rather than manipulation or requests for loyalty. Tyler occasionally expressed missing his mother, but he also demonstrated clear understanding that her return would require proof of genuine change rather than just promises or apologies. His emotional intelligence continued developing as he learned to trust his own feelings rather than managing adult emotions. "I hope Mommy learns how to make better choices so she can come home someday," Tyler told me during one of our conversations. "But I also hope she doesn't try to take other people's money anymore, because that makes everyone sad and scared." His simple wisdom reflected the healthy value system he was developing through honest family relationships and appropriate consequences for harmful behavior. Tyler was learning that love includes accountability rather than enabling destruction. My own healing journey included therapy to address the long-term effects of family manipulation and financial abuse. Dr. Jennifer Walsh helped me understand how growing up with Amanda's manipulation had affected my ability to recognize and respond to toxic behavior patterns in other relationships. "You learn to normalize emotional manipulation and financial exploitation as expressions of family love," Dr. Walsh explained. "Healing requires rebuilding your understanding of what healthy relationships actually look like and trusting your instincts about people's motivations." The therapeutic work was challenging but liberating as I developed stronger boundaries and communication skills. I began dating again for the first time in years, approaching new relationships with clear expectations about mutual respect and financial independence. My relationship with Dad continued improving as we both learned to communicate honestly about difficult topics without falling into old patterns of guilt manipulation or conflict avoidance. Our weekly meetings provided opportunities to practice healthy relationship skills while maintaining connection. "I'm proud of the woman you've become despite my failures as your father," Dad told me during one particularly meaningful conversation. "You showed strength and integrity when our family needed it most, even though it cost you relationships and caused you pain. I hope someday I can be worthy of the daughter you've always been." His recognition meant more than any apology because it came with sustained behavioral changes and genuine understanding of the damage his favoritism had caused. Dad was finally learning to see me as an individual rather than a role in Amanda's support system. The legal case had broader implications beyond our family situation. Detective Santos used our case as training material for other officers investigating family financial abuse, helping them recognize the complex manipulation tactics that make these crimes particularly damaging to victims. Family financial abuse cases are often more psychologically devastating than stranger crimes because they involve betrayal by people who are supposed to protect us. Detective Santos explained during a community education presentation we attended. Victims like Kendra, who report these crimes and pursue justice, help protect other potential victims and break cycles of family dysfunction. Tyler's 8th birthday party was the first family celebration in years that felt genuinely joyful rather than tense, with underlying manipulation and conflict. Grandma Rose attended from her assisted living community, Uncle Mike, and his family drove up from Tucson, and several of Tyler's school friends joined us for an afternoon of games and cake. The difference in family atmosphere was remarkable compared to Amanda's birthday party that had triggered the confrontation 8 months earlier. Conversations were honest and relaxed, focused on celebrating Tyler rather than managing adult emotions or navigating hidden agendas. Tyler blew out his candles and made a wish that he shared with everyone present. I wished for our family to keep being happy and honest like this, and for Mommy to learn how to be happy without taking things that don't belong to her. His innocent hope for his mother's rehabilitation reflected the healthy balance of love and boundaries that had replaced the toxic loyalty expectations that once defined our family relationships. Tyler was learning that caring about someone includes wanting them to become their best self rather than enabling their worst behaviors. As we cleaned up after the party, Dad and I reflected on how much had changed since the previous year's devastating birthday confrontation. The crisis that had seemed like the end of our family had actually been the beginning of much healthier relationships built on truth rather than manipulation. "Thank you for refusing to apologize for things you didn't do wrong," Dad said as we packed leftover cake. "If you had given in to our pressure, Amanda would have continued stealing and Tyler would have grown up thinking manipulation was normal family behavior. Your strength saved all of us." That evening, I sat in my peaceful apartment reviewing the journey from family scapegoat to respected family member who had helped everyone heal from years of dysfunction. The price of establishing boundaries had been temporary isolation and family conflict, but the rewards were healthy relationships based on genuine care rather than obligation or guilt. The deepest satisfaction came from knowing that Tyler was growing up with honest relationships and clear values about personal responsibility and respect for others. He would never have to wonder if family love required accepting abuse or enabling harmful behavior. My phone buzzed with a text message from my coworker and friend Lisa, who had supported me throughout the legal process. "How was Tyler's party? You've all come so far from where you started." I responded with gratitude for her friendship and support. It was perfect. Real family love is so much better than the fake version I thought was normal. Tyler's growing up knowing what healthy relationships actually look like. As I prepared for bed that night, I reflected on the profound life lesson that had emerged from the most difficult year of my life. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable destructive behavior, even when that refusal is misunderstood or criticized by people who matter to us. Walking away from toxicity isn't selfish or cruel. It's essential for creating space for genuine healing and growth. True family supports each member's development rather than exploiting their loyalty or resources. The relationships worth preserving are those built on mutual respect, honesty, and care for each other's well-being. Tyler would grow up understanding these principles because someone in his family had been willing to endure temporary pain to create lasting positive change. That knowledge filled me with peace and purpose as I looked forward to many more years of authentic family relationships built on love rather than manipulation. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where standing up for yourself felt like you were being the bad guy in your family? How do you think you would handle discovering that a family member was stealing from you while everyone expected you to just forgive and move on? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Don't forget to share this with anyone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with toxic family members isn't selfish. It's necessary for everyone's healing and growth. Thank you for listening to Tyler's and my journey toward healthier family relationships. Remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and honesty by the people who claim to love you, and never let anyone convince you that accepting abuse is the same thing as being loyal to family. Until next time, take care of yourselves and trust your instincts about what healthy love actually looks like.